It's a cold, frigid day here in the Sioux. Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, where we're reporting from today for Turnbuckle Talk. OMD, how are you handling this cold weather, my friend?
Well, today was again another nice inside day, despite how quiet it was. And the music just kept looping for me.
Yeah, that's understandable. Oh geez, as I was saying the other day, I think I told you guys off stream, but I turned my thermostat up to 30 degrees Fahrenheit before this cold snap hit, and there was a brief time where I was regretting having doing that. Not regretting it anymore. My apartment's been toasty warm, and I thank God that during this cold snap I haven't had to go out anywhere. That is unfortunately until maybe the end of this week when uh certain bribe money, we'll just call it that, arrives in my mail.
Right.
Um but yeah, it's funny though because I've been watching like across the street. There's a little park across the street. You've been to my place before. You've seen it. There's I always see little kids out there playing, and today I actually saw little kids out there playing. I'm like, how in the hell can you play in this cold? uh, but then again,
Well, it's funny because this cold snap is supposed to start letting up a little bit tomorrow. But we had family dinner last night, and my niece showed up just wearing a hoodie, and of course her other clothes, but yeah, just a hoodie, no winter jacket, no toque, no mitts.
yeah, I'm literally considering, like, on this forthcoming check that I'm supposed to be getting, I'm literally considering going to Mark's Work Warehouse and getting myself a pair of gloves, you know? um just so we can combat this cold, because I know that this ain't going to be the last cold snap we get this year.
No, it certainly won't be the last cold snap, but this is probably the worst cold snap.
Yeah. For those who don't know, we're dipping into the what the feels like being at like minus 30 degrees. It almost hit minus 40 last night. It's bad. It's really bad. Give me 2 seconds here. I'm trying to close off something here. There we go. Okay, I'm still here, right?
You are still here. I'm just
Okay.
hoping that nope, the musical loop is still going in my ear.
Well, OMD, I hate to make you loop some more because it's showtime. And as OMD is going to continue with that loop in his ear, we're going to take some breaking news right now. At the top of the show, we've got NXT on our TVs. There has been rumors flying about all day whether or not Corey Graves is going to be at NXT or not. There was a lot of conflicting reports out there. However, as if most of you are sitting there watching NXT while checking our show out, he is there. He is on commentary tonight. But that leads me to wonder, are things smoothed over with the WWE? I'm going to say maybe, maybe not.
I'm going to say yes. I think there's a lot of different ways that this can go. One, he can either remain on commentary on NXT. Two, maybe he's down there to pick up a client and become a manager or a mouthpiece. We've heard rumors on SmackDown as well that, Wade Barrett was scheduled for a tentative feud with Drew McIntyre. As well, we've heard Wade Barrett potentially creating a new nexus where he is the manager. which again opens up those positions for Corey Graves to step in. We can also look at a potential, since he has been cleared, Royal Rumble appearance.
I'm taking this from a non-kayfabe perspective and looking at the history of people who have walked out of the WWE.
Right.
And how this feels like it's repeating history a little bit here, because we saw Austin walk out on the WWE twice. We saw CM Punk walk out on the WWE twice. We saw Jeff Jarrett even do that, walk out on the WWE 3 times, actually, for him.
Yep.
This could very well be the same thing for Corey Graves.
Yep.
I mean, he did walk out, essentially. He was sent home by the WWE, probably over some disagreement. Maybe things were hashed over. I hope things were hashed over, because I do like Corey Graves. I don't mind him at all. But this is something where we're going to have to just pay close attention to over the next year, I will say, because I mean, Punk's two walkouts happened within a 1 year span. So
yeah, I mean, and for the WWE, although it is nothing new, it is something that is few and far between, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike backstage drama wrestling, I guess, as it should now be known, down in Jacksonville,
mm-hmm.
Who just cannot seem to keep their talent happy whatsoever.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was, but it was Bull Dempsey. Bull Dempsey specifically had said, it's like a click. It's like a click, atmosphere in that locker room.
Yeah. And we've got Bubba Duke coming in here saying Corey Graves sucks. Well, you know what? You're entitled to your opinion. Best and I both appreciate Corey Graves. I've been a fan of his since he was an in-ring competitor.
Yep, and I'm on the side that, like, I think he's a great mouthpiece. The way he does his commentary, he's great at doing it. He is well versed in his history. The only time I did not like Corey Graves, though, and maybe you might agree with me on this one, was his constant bullying of Byron Saxton. I did not like that. It got a little uncomfortable for me at points.
I can understand where you're coming from. I don't think it was intended, because, I mean, if you're going to look at that, like, I mean, we know that the JBL Mauro Ranallo situation, where that went.
Yeah, again, very uncomfortable situation.
And I always looked at it as not necessarily a playful banter, but just two coworkers, and one was trying to get under the other's skin.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it sometimes felt like Corey went a little too far with him.
Right.
But on that note, it's official. Corey Graves is back on NXT. Will we get some clarification on what happened? Maybe we will. Maybe we won't.
Right.
We got Bulkster saying The Rock pulled him aside and told him to know his role and shut his mouth. Somebody told me that. I'm walking out. I'm sorry. I've got my pride.
After I smack The Rock in the mouth.
OMD, I already told you last night we don't want to plan your funeral.
Oh.
I have another fantastic story here that I'd like to cover here. Something I didn't realize that there was a lot of history on, but we're getting a book based on it. But we're getting a ECW Press, which they're like the top book writers, I guess you could say, or publishing company for pro wrestling books outside of the WWE. They are set to release a book covering the history of WrestleMania 3. And it's going to be written by longtime reporter and author and former WWF magazine editor Keith Elliott Greenberg is going to be doing it.
Okay.
The publisher announced that the title of the book was going to be called Bigger, Better, Badder, WrestleMania 3 and the Year It All Changed. It's going to be released late March. The March 1987 event is one of the most storied successes in WWE history and represented the largest undertaking for Vince McMahon to that point. And then it goes into the long press release over this book. I'm excited about this because I didn't even really think much of there being a history towards the development of WrestleMania 3, but I'm curious to see how it all came about. Not just for how they set up the Silverdome for that event, but not the Superdome Hulk Hogan.
Right.
Although he actually called the Superdome the Silverdome.
Yes, he did.
This excites me because I'm curious to see how the setup went for not just the Silverdome, but for all of the closed circuit locations that they use and how they went about that. Because I only know of one side of the story from that, and that's from Jimmy Corderas. He talks about it in his book.
Right.
This is intriguing. What do you think, man?
Well, I've never heard of ECW publishing before. Like, as soon as I saw that, I'm thinking, wait, why is something for Extreme Championship Wrestling doing a thing on the history of WrestleMania 3?
Yeah.
Because we do know that WrestleMania 3 really was the first pay-per-view, as WrestleMania 1 was done on closed circuit TV.
Actually, WrestleMania 1 was available in select markets for pay-per-view.
WrestleMania 2 was the first WrestleMania to take place in 2 simultaneous locations.
3 simultaneous locations.
Hey, enough.
My data's coming out here.
Yeah. No, as far as I knew, it was New Jersey and Los Angeles, or New York and Los Angeles.
New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles, man.
Oh, well. See how important Chicago is to me? It's kind of like the Bears. So this was really the first major pay-per-view platform, and I mean the history of it, just the matches, how it all did come together to set the all-time attendance record for that generation and generations to come.
Yeah, the reported, and I'm going to actually use this, the reported 93,173 fans. And I know it straight down to the one because I've watched WrestleMania 3 countless times. And Dave Meltzer, you can fight me on that one, but I'm using that number.
So this would be a very interesting read.
Yeah, because like I said, I'm interested in knowing like how the event came to be, how they decided that they were going to go with Hogan and Andre in the main event, how all the other matches were booked together. I mean, I already know how Savage and Steamboat was booked together. I remember that feud like it was nothing, you know?
Right.
I kind of want to know the backstage side of things on this one. And this intrigues me because there's not a lot of stories out there as far as backstage stories go, as far as things that happened in the 80s that you hear about these days.
Right.
So this, there was a date here, but I don't see where. I want to say it was March 25th. Well, it just says late March. But this is interesting. Like, yes. I'm going to find my way to Kohl's and see if I can get this book.
Yes. Speaking of WrestleMania, the WWE is apparently slated to hold a press conference, a WrestleMania press conference, Super Bowl weekend from New Orleans. And New Orleans is widely being reported as the front runner for WrestleMania 42.
That right now is just a rumor right now, so we don't know, because they have used other cities to promote WrestleManias in other cities. So they could, like, I remember they used for a press conference, they did a press conference in New York for WrestleMania 14, which was being held in Boston. I remember that very vividly.
Right. I know last year they did the press conference in Vegas to announce this year's in Vegas.
Yeah.
Or for last year's in Philly, sorry.
Yeah. So it's going to be intriguing. We'll have to keep an ear out on that story. But as far as we know, the front runner is Nolans.
Yes.
So,
and it does bring up interesting reports because even prior to that, I had heard rumors for 43 with Detroit being the front runner as being the 40-year anniversary of WrestleMania 3, as well as the 20-year anniversary of WrestleMania 23, one that I had the privilege of attending.
Somewhere in there, Minneapolis has to get their Mania.
Yes, Minneapolis as well as Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And Indianapolis was just put out there as the home for WrestleMania 43 as well. So it's going to be interesting. But we know that the deal with Indianapolis is a 5-year deal.
Yeah, and I think that's a similar deal with Minneapolis anyway, or Minnesota, the state of Minnesota, we'll say.
Right.
I'm just assuming Minneapolis because that's one of their big cities. So
yeah.
Now you also have an update regarding like what had happened with the PCO situation and the TNA Digital Media Championship.
Yes, I do. And this was very, very interesting to read because over the weekend, PCO appeared at a GCW show, destroyed the TNA Digital Media Championship, and went on a rant. Apparently, neither company had any idea that this was going to happen. And both promotions were unhappy. And from the article, as per Fightful, the veteran star who destroyed the TNA Digital Media Championship at the People vs. GCW show and cut a scathing promo didn't inform either company that he would be cutting the promo or destroying the belt. PCO reportedly told GCW prior to going out that the promo he was set to cut was to set up a story for the next TNA shows, which they later realized wasn't the case. The report further added that those behind the scenes in TNA were shocked and livid at what PCO did at the show, with some in TNA believing that his actions were because they didn't renew his contract. TNA sources told Fightful that PCO's contract had expired at the end of last year and he was set to finish his run with the promotion at the upcoming tapings in San Antonio this coming weekend. But following his outburst, he will not return. However, it was also reported that it was a replica belt and that TNA is in possession of the authentic title. PCO was scheduled to lose the title this weekend, but it has now been vacated.
So, sorry, I got distracted because PCO, I mean, that was a bit unprofessional PCO to do that. I will give you that. But on my screen, I've got Julia and Bailey standing in the ring or standing in the same arena.
Right.
But no, what PCO did, it's a little bit on the unprofessional side. But here's the other thing, the other side of that too. If he told GCW officials that it was okay, why didn't those GCW officials call up some TNA guys to say, hey, this is going to happen? Or did you guys give this okay, you know?
Right. But, I mean, if he's telling them one thing and then going and doing another.
Yeah, and if TNA officials are like, no, we're not okay with that, then the GCW officials should be nixing that, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. The problem is, and I mean, I don't know a whole lot about GCW other than that they are more hardcore than hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
What officials?
Well, somebody still has to run the events, you know?
So, I mean, and PCO, I mean, after a decade or more of him being blackballed, because he was blackballed for over a decade in wrestling.
And that's exactly why, Bubba. But with the respect he gets in the business, why question him? You should automatically question if you're taking somebody from another guy. And just imagine, if you will, you worked at Home Depot and Walmart, but you go to Walmart and you do something that it's okay to do at Home Depot, but it's okay at Walmart. But you tell your bosses, oh, the guys at Home Depot said it's okay.
Yeah.
That's where I'm getting at here. I literally would contact TNA and say, hey, is this okay for them to do that? Are you okay with this?
Yeah.
And if TNA is not okay, then you put the kibosh on that. Same thing would go for if TNA took a GCW guy on, and vice versa, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, and I think to even mimic destroying a title because you're not happy with your current standing when your contract has expired, because whether TNA chose not to renew, whether you chose not to renew, whether it was mutual, talk it out and say, look. And especially then if you were slated to be at these upcoming tapings to defend the title and potentially lose it, right? If they're going to keep the belt on you, then that opens a window for more negotiation.
Yeah, and if you're on your way out, the honorable thing is to take the loss and leave.
Yeah.
It's sort of like a passing of the torch sort of deal. So if
Yeah.
whoever PCO is destined to drop that title to, you do that in an honorable way. And I know that I flip back and forth, especially when it comes to the Montreal screw job, but there are times when I'm like, Brett should have taken the pin.
Right. See, and I remember popping at the screw job in 97. I remember getting to tell Earl Hebner straight to his face that I support 97. And that's primarily because I am a Shawn Michaels fan. And I remember watching that at the Purple Lantern, and I was the only one cheering.
But again, it doesn't matter if you're PCO. It doesn't matter if you're Shawn Michaels. It doesn't matter if you're Hulk Hogan. If Hulk Hogan went to, let's say Hulk Hogan was wrestling, let's put Hogan in his prime, right? He's got the WWF title. The NWA calls him up. They want to have him do a match with Ric Flair. If Hulk Hogan wants to come out and smash up the title, the NWA, I guarantee, would want to contact Vince McMahon to say, hey, is this okay? And Vince McMahon would probably say, no, it's not.
Right. Well, let's look at the prime example of that, and Medusa.
Yeah.
With the trash can job. The original trash can job.
Yeah. For those that don't know, she showed up on an episode of Nitro with the WWF Women's title. Medusa initially didn't want to do that, but Bischoff coerced her into doing it.
Yes.
And look where it got her.
Yeah.
But on that note, again, it was very unprofessional from all parties, GCW and PCO. Very unprofessional to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, if that's how you're going out, now look what you've just done. You've just completely tarnished your legacy.
I wouldn't say tarnished your legacy, because there's a lot of good things PCO still has done, but it may have ruined his reputation as far as getting work elsewhere in the near future.
Right. I mean, this was a guy who just, 8 years ago, won his first world title when he won the Ring of Honor Championship.
Mm-hmm.
This was under the previous ROH regime, back when ROH was ROH.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, again, completely unprofessional on PCO's part. I'm sure that maybe just like the Corey Graves situation, maybe they will hash things out. I get a feeling that that's probably what's going to happen because now with PCO, his relationship with GCW and TNA could very well be soured.
Absolutely.
But we've got some gigantic news in an update from a news report that we started reporting on last year. But it has been officially announced that the formation of United Japan Pro Wrestling has happened, a new incorporated association aimed at strengthening the industry and showcasing the power of wrestling on a worldwide scale. The group is chaired by Senshiro Takagi and includes major promotions like All Japan, Big Japan, Big Japan Pro Wrestling, DDT Pro, Dragon Gate, Gunbear Pro Wrestling, Kyushu Pro Wrestling, in New Japan, Noah, Stardom, and Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling. Takagi made it clear that this isn't just about business, it's about building a stronger, more unified wrestling history or industry in Japan. The mission is to support the people of Japan through professional wrestling, Takagi stated, explaining that the idea for UJPW was inspired by the struggles of the industry faced during the COVID-19 pandemic. He emphasized the importance of having a unified point of call for the industry in times of crisis while also improving communication between promotions. UGPW is not won't be a money-making organization. It's a nonprofit focused on governance, transparency, and industry growth. New promotions can apply to join, but there are strict requirements. Promotions must be active in Japan, legally recognized, and have at least one contracted wrestler, bring in an annual revenue of 50 million yen, and follow corporate compliance guidelines.
Yes. Again, I don't know enough about Japanese wrestling. I've heard of, Dragon Gate, New Japan Pro, All Japan Pro, Joshi Pro, and Stardom.
You had to have heard of Noah.
Yes. It was just one of those ones that.
Yeah. What I'm gathering from this, though, is it's going to be more like an NWA for the companies, but not necessarily like there's not going to be like a UJPW champion, but it's
Right.
going to be a way like for similar to what we're going to be talking about in our main story. Alec, we're going to get to your question with that in the Showstopper segment. This is going to be like okay, New Japan has evil, but All Japan wants to use evil for something. Okay, so
Right.
we'll take evil and we'll send over one of our guys. That's what it sounds like it's going to be for me. Like it feels like, as Alec Perez is talking about crossovers in the chat there, this feels like it's going to be like we're going to see some crossover events between these Japanese promotions. What actually surprises me there is that we don't see Marigold in there, and I guess Marigold maybe doesn't quite follow what their guidelines are just yet, but I do get a feeling that Rossi
Right.
Ogawa may want to make a partnership with those guys
Right.
regarding that, even if he did have a sour falling out with the guys over at Stardom, you know?
Right. And see, the way I'm looking at it, it's probably a little bit different from you. What I'm looking at it as is we don't often separate over here in North America. We don't often separate Japan into separate states or provinces. Whereas here in North America, in the US specifically, they have different state athletic commissions. And I'm wondering if that's what this is supposed to sort of be for the industry of Japanese wrestling.
Well, they do have provinces and states. They call them prefectures over there, actually. Um, but yeah, this could be this could be that way too. It could be like it is a governing body for all the professional wrestling in Japan.
Right.
Um, and of course, as it said, the guidelines for joining that promotion is you have to, or for joining the alliance, we're going to say alliance there. Um, is that you have to be making 50 million yen per year. That's probably going to be not hard for Rossi Ogawa to make, we'll say.
Right.
50 million a year. You have to operate pretty much primarily in Japan, it says. Allowed to legally work in Japan. So I wonder if that's going to allow. The one thing I'm looking at too is like they're like they want to bring Japanese wrestling worldwide. So I'm wondering now if they're going to take. I mean, New Japan's already been doing worldwide events. They've done
Yep.
events here in Canada, here in the U.S. They've done events in the UK, and I think they have one in Germany coming up or something like that.
Right.
Um, that's the other thing I'm thinking about too is are we going to see other promotions do that through this UJPW promotion? Are we going to see Noah come over here and do some events? Are we going to see All Japan do the same thing?
Right. And again, and I'm wondering if this is going to play into things like we've seen with AEW's Forbidden Door and now Wrestle Dynasty earlier this year. We've seen WWE loan superstars to Noah. Currently in NXT, there is a Noah superstar working as well. Whether that's part of his Japanese excursion, I don't know.
Yeah, right now they've got Omos working over there, and Omos is just enjoying it over there from the stories I've heard from him.
Yep.
Yeah, that's another good question too. Is that how is this gonna? You know what I actually want to see them do? We've got New Japan Pro Wrestling World, which is a streaming service for New Japan events. Why not create a streaming service for under the UJPW promotion to give these other promotions like All Japan and the Noah? Why not make a streaming service for all of those promotions so that
right
there is more of that worldwide access that they've talked about?
Right. Again, and like I've said, I don't follow enough Japanese wrestling. I used to be able to watch it Thursday nights at 10 o'clock after TNA, but we're not getting that on Sportsnet 360, and I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's other ways that you can catch like New Japan. New Japan's they throw their matches up on YouTube every once in a while and all that. So
yeah. But the fact that this is a non-profit and like a governing body, I like it. But I'm also wondering if this is going to be to not necessarily form a wrestlers union, but if a wrestler has a complaint in one company, can they take that to United Japan? And then that issue, it may get spread to all the other companies, but it's also, okay, what can this company do to make a better environment for you?
you know what? I like that. I like that too. I like that idea as well. Yeah, no, it's not necessarily like you said, building a union for the Japanese wrestlers, but a way to help. Yeah, as it said, it's a way to help all the companies better communicate with one another. Because the one thing that they don't do is in Japan is like, let's say New Japan has a show coming up at Korakuen Hall. Pro Wrestling Noah wants to book that venue. We'll say
Right.
New Japan. They will come to what it sounds like. They're going to come to an agreement. Like, okay, New Japan wants to use this Korakuen Hall for an event. So does Pro Wrestling Noah. Let's sit down, work together, and we can schedule some dates so that we're not stepping on each other's toes for this.
Yeah.
To use this venue. Those are the types of communications I'm thinking about. And then there's also, like I mentioned, the lending wrestlers. Like you can take, say, Evil from Pro Wrestling, from New Japan Pro, and maybe lend him to All Japan for an event. But then New Japan would have to get something of equal value to Evil.
Right.
To come back to the show. This is also another way we've talked about the idea of wrestlers going around and getting seasonings. There's also what they call freelancers in Japan.
Yep.
Wrestlers that aren't tied to any specific promotion, but they go and wrestle for all these promotions, just to do it, just to get that seasoning.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's going to work out in the favor for, in New Japan they call them the Young Lions. I'm wondering if
Yes.
that's going to work out in favor for them.
Again, in that case, I'm going to say no, because the Young Lions are typically, yes, they are trained under a dojo, whether it's the Dragon Gate, whether it's New Japan, and they are essentially assigned a veteran where they are, carrying the bags and learning under this individual. So
Right,
do you
but
really want to be going to 3 different companies and having to carry 3 different sets of bags and remember 3 different companies' promos?
okay, but let's remove that veteran. And now the promoters are now the veteran, and they're saying, hey, if you want to wrestle this style, go to this company. If you want to wrestle this style, go to this company and pick up a little bit of information. It'll be just like when all the Japanese promotion sends their guys over here and we send our guys over there.
Yeah.
It'll be just like learning the different styles. It'll be just like how we tour the indies before you make it to the majors.
Right.
That's what I'm getting at. So that, like, let's say New Japan has a young lion. They have a lot of faith around him, we'll say. So they want to send him to all these promotions so that he gets the seasoning, and then when he comes back, they get a seasoned wrestler in return.
Right.
And the same thing could be said for all the other promotions that are training guys as well.
Right. And I know that that's a big thing too with the Japanese US excursion. Like, you've seen Shota Umino, Yu Yamura come over. And whether they were working TNA, AEW, because really at the time they weren't getting the exposure, the opportunity to go to WWE because of the working agreements had with those other companies.
Mm-hmm. I'll do you one real good. Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yep.
For those that don't remember, this excursion, well, it's not an excursion. He's actually contracted to WWE, but this time in the US is not his first time.
No, it's not.
His first time was his American excursion to TNA. Yes. Granted, they didn't use him as properly as they should, but he came back. New Japan got a main event star out of him when he came back.
Kazuchika Okada.
Yep.
Again, another one wasn't properly utilized in TNA and had sworn off American wrestling.
I remember he got the Green Hornet angle gimmick, and it sucked. But also there's Tatsuya Naito. He came over for a little bit.
Yes, he did.
And that's what I'm meaning, is that maybe they send wrestlers to their promotions around to get a little bit of seasoning from, because I mean, there is a difference between the wrestling in New Japan and the wrestling in Pro Wrestling Noah. I see the difference big time between the two promotions.
Okay. And again, like, I've watched a little bit of New Japan. I've never watched Noah. Mm-hmm. But there's also a big difference between Japanese strong style and the North American style.
Right. And it's not just all it's not just strong style over in Japan. There's a whole bunch of different wrestling styles that are over there. And again, that's where that traveling between the promotions could very well help young lions. And that's where the communication with Ultimate UJPW. I'm stumbling in my words here.
United Japan Pro Wrestling.
Thank you. It's going to take a minute to learn it, but yeah, that's where that communication between those two, because maybe it could be just like you said, it could very well be just like a union, because let's face it, the steelworkers union in our city, right? They're not just for steelworkers. There's actually a whole bunch of different industries that they're a part of.
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm excited for this, and I'm intrigued to see what happens, and I'm intrigued to see if it's going to be anything like what our showstopper segment is going to be tonight. And speaking of that, what do you say we talk about the biggest piece of news coming out of TNA Genesis, and that was Sunday night was the last night for two wrestlers, but one in particular we're going to talk about, and that's Jordynne Grace.
Yes.
Jordynne Grace had said her goodbyes. She's been taken off the TNA. She has been taken off the TNA roster page. She's also canceled several meet and greet events that she had. One of them was with Jonathan Gresham, and they canceled his half of it as well, which I'm gonna put that on the back burner for now.
Yeah.
But it's leaning more and more to Jordynne Grace going to the WWE, and there's already rumors that she is scheduled to appear or to be at the PC by the end of this week.
Yes, and it's going to be very interesting to see. And we watched her have a phenomenal match, the match of the night this past Saturday at Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there was a clip of everything going around in the back, even her celebrating with Tessa Blanchard, as well as the rest of the TNA locker room and the staff to say thank you. And again, we just have to wait and see. The reports are that she is WWE bound, but again, until you see it physically, you can't say anything. I know we've sat here ad nauseum and discussed this.
Mm-hmm.
For the Royal Rumble to be the best place for her to debut, and I think I'm in agreement with you. I don't think she's done the NXT thing a little bit, and I think she's established enough in her name that she can go right to the main roster.
Yeah, but imagine all the competition that she has right now on NXT. One of those women I'm looking at on my screen right now is Stephanie Vacour.
Yeah.
We've got Zarya. There's even, I was going to say Jade Cargill, but she's main roster. Julia is another one I would love to see. So, like, even if she gets, like, a rematch against Roxanne Perez, because let's face it, there's history there. Roxanne Perez holds a victory over Jordynne Grace.
One of the ones that I'm really looking forward to seeing, and I know our friend Parrish suggested this as well, of Jordynne Grace versus Rhea Ripley. I think even before we get to that, I want to see Jordynne Grace and Tiffany Stratton, because that match would blow the roof off.
Her and Bianca Belair too would be a hell of a match.
It would.
I mean, there's a lot of dream matches that we can come up with for Jordynne Grace. And unlike All Elite, she's not going to be blowing through those matches in like 3 months.
No.
We gave her, we just listed off a bunch of wrestlers, and we listed off like 3 years of feuds for her.
Right?
I'm very excited to see what they do, where they go with Jordynne Grace. I do expect her to be at the Royal Rumble. That's a total given. I kind of want to see a spot with her in the Rumble, and I know we saw it last year, but I want to see a spot with her and Naomi in the Rumble again.
I see, and that's why I avoided that one, because it's not something I need to see again right away. It's not something that I want to rush back to.
Well, you're not rushing into a feud. It's just a spot.
Yeah, but even still, it's not something that I want to rush back to. And I think that would just be exactly that. They're going to just play off the history. And it's, you had that moment last year. You can't recapture that moment.
Sure you can. You certainly can. You just have to build to it right.
Yeah, I disagree. I don't think you can recapture that moment, because that was Naomi's return after her contract had expired with TNA. Jordynne Grace, it was just the right timing, the right moment. And I don't think you can recapture that. That was magical. That was lightning in a bottle. I remember the look on your face when Jordynne Grace's music hit.
Yeah, you were in the middle of talking, and I literally said the words "OMD, shut up." Jordynne Grace is making her way to the ring. I know this because I watched our thing earlier today, a little bit of it, and you got that look on your face like, oh God, because I think you thought the sirens were for somebody else or something
No,
like
I
that.
knew because I had already read and you had told me pre-show that, I want to
I
be
don't.
surprised.
Yeah, and that's the way I am for all PLE patrols, and I'm going to say this right now for Saturday Night Gaming as well, because I did have somebody come into my chat. I'm a no spoiler guy.
Right.
Always have been. I had a guy come in and spoil for everybody else, because if I'm a no spoiler guy, everybody else that's viewing it should also respect that and not spoil it for anybody who doesn't know the game or the TV show or the TNA locker room gave her the title signed. I don't see any reports on that, Bubba, right now.
I sent a video of it to the group chat the other night.
Oh, okay.
And according to Bubba,
yeah, there's also nothing reporting that as well.
no, there isn't.
But yeah, he for those who are listening, Bubba's saying that that Jordynne is at the PC tonight. But yeah, the title signing was in the video. I didn't watch the video yet because it was sent last night, and I was probably asleep when I seen it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, no, because I know you weren't feeling good Saturday night, and I think I saw it within, an hour and a half of us going off the air from watching Genesis.
Yeah, Sunday night. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have seen it. I was passed out by that point. But yeah, I'm excited to see this. Now the other person that also had their final night on TNA was one. Oh my God, his name is just escaped me.
Josh Alexander.
Thank you. His face was there. The earmuffs were there, but my brain was going Rick Steiner.
Right. However, because he did, after his match, he did say he quit TNA. And I didn't even see this during Genesis. He was told by Santino Marella, the TNA Director of Authority, that he is still obligated for this weekend's tapings in San Antonio.
Yes, that's because his contract actually runs out in the middle of February.
Yes.
So he is still on his way out. I fully expect that he is going to do exactly as he says. He's going to dip his toe in the free agent market. That's exactly what he had said to Chris Van Vliet about a month or so ago.
Yep.
I fully expect that he's going to, and I'm going to say it just like he's going to pull a Juan Soto, and he's going to take a look at what AEW is offering, what WWE is offering, what New Japan's offering, and he's going to go to where it's best for him.
Yeah.
So I'm not counting my chickens before they hatch as far as him signing with the WWE.
No. And I mean, with his wife having just left, because it was great to see Mackenzie Mitchell back in TNA this past weekend as the ring announcer. So it's going to be interesting to see what it is going to be for the family. What I can ask is, Danny Duggan, can we get Josh Alexander, please?
Yeah. Yeah, let's I'd be excited to see Josh Alexander come up here for sure. What do you say we move on? I think it is time, because we're closing in on the 1 hour mark for the show, but I think it is time for our
on his feet. Oh my God in heaven!
Our Showstopper segment. And it was so good that I saw the super kick twice. We're going to be talking about the TNA WWE partnership. It's official. It's been signed. I mean, this past year was more like them testing the waters as far as this goes, and it's a multi-year deal. It doesn't say how many years it is. But let's talk about like the possible wrestlers that we could see. I'm going to start off with what Alec Perez had said. Do we see Jeff Hardy maybe showing up in the Royal Rumble?
I'm going to say no on that one. I mean, it is a possibility, and anything is in the realm. I think if you're going to see the Hardys do anything, it's going to be NXT, so that way they can, come in and work with the youngsters in NXT.
Yeah, why not put them up against Axiom and Nathan Frazier?
Yeah. As we saw that actually on Sunday night at Genesis.
Yeah. Now the wrestlers I do expect to see, of course, I mean, we've already seen him, but Joe Hendry coming over. Masha Slamovich, we've already seen her on NXT TV, so I fully expect that she's going to be brought in at some point. Yes. I feel like Masha could very well be the woman from the TNA side who appears in the Royal Rumble.
Right.
And I say woman, but I would prefer like if 2 or 3 women maybe from TNA came over and 2 or 3 men from TNA came over for the men's Rumble.
We just saw Cora Jade make an appearance at TNA's Genesis.
Yes, we did.
And we do know that this agreement is with a focus on NXT, but you can definitely see main roster superstars going back and forth as well.
Yeah, because it also says in that deal that they could do matches on major events, and it said major events, not like PLEs or anything like that.
Right.
So we could see, in theory, like, again, I'm going to say Joe Hendry with this heavyweight title, defending the title at WrestleMania, maybe.
Yep. Well, and it's funny because you mentioned that, and Joe Hendry, after winning the title, has asked for John Cena.
Yeah. And there you could easily do that now with this deal. I do want to see I'm trying to think of some men that I want to see Moose come over, and I want to see what Moose can do with Obafemi, we'll say.
Right. I would like to see Moose come over and even do a main roster. Let's get a Moose versus McIntyre one more time.
Or even I just kind of thought of this. Moose and Braun Breaker would be a good match as well.
Yeah.
I kind of want to see how Moose would also perform in the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
And then there's your guys who were formerly employed by the WWE who could very well make their way back over. And I'm talking about specifically Nick Nemeth. He's mentioned in the past that if he does come back over, he's going to he won't mind getting back into the old Dolph Ziggler gear and doing that.
Right. And the old music, specifically for the Rumble.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, look at the WWE superstars that have been there in AJ Styles, Drew McIntyre,
the Good Brothers.
Yeah. Charlie Dempsey's been there alongside the No Quarter Catch crew.
Joaquin Wilde also wrestled in TNA.
Yes, he did.
Formerly known as Zema Ion. And that's a real deep grab there. Robert Stone used to wrestle in TNA as Robbie E.
Yes, he did.
It's very possible that even with Robert Stone again, if they borrow him, that maybe he brings back the Robbie E gimmick.
What about a Chelsea Green?
She spent time there too, from what I've heard.
Laurel Van Ness, yes.
Yep. She was there during a time that I couldn't watch TNA. It's not that I didn't want to. I couldn't. I didn't have access to watching TNA at that time. But I've heard and read up on her through like various podcasts and stuff like that at that point.
Right.
Hell, even as I'm looking at it, there's a part of me that wouldn't mind seeing Lexis King over there.
Right.
I mean, this is again, just like the United Japan Pro Wrestling thing. This is a great way for your NXT stars and your TNA wrestlers to get a little bit of seasoning between both promotions.
Right. What about, and let's use the most prominent name that has been popping up just about everywhere, John Bradshaw Layfield.
I mean, he was on Genesis the night before and Raw the following night. Maybe this is where he furthers that angle, because he's not only been doing this angle in just TNA and the WWE, he's also been doing it in GCW
And MLW.
and AAA.
Yeah.
And they've all somehow involved Nick Nemeth. So let's say we get Nick Nemeth wrestling on NXT, and then we see JBL showing up and doing what he's been doing.
Right. How about a Penta who is a former Impact champion?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities with this, and I'd like to see how many years this deal is.
Right.
And I'm wondering if we're going through a transfer window on WWE. I wonder if at some point, and this is probably a bit of a reach here, I wonder if at some point we see a trade between TNA and the WWE.
You know what? I would be okay with it. And you know who I think would be the perfect fit to do it? American Made.
Explain how.
Explain how? The Creed brothers go over. They can very easily win the TNA tag titles.
Mhm.
That gives them their real first experience with carrying the belts. Chad doesn't need to win the TNA title, but he could win the X division to give him his first career singles title. Ivy Nile very easily can be a Knockouts champion because she's got the same type of power, although she is significantly smaller, as Jordynne Grace.
Well, doesn't Masha Slamovich have the title right now?
She does.
But her and Masha Slamovich would be a heck of a match.
Yeah, I think American Made would be the perfect fit. I would even be okay if you get the no quarter catch crew. Ren Sinclair, though, for me, has become too much of a comedy act as opposed to a serious competitor.
Hey, we talk about NXT, Ren Sinclair, yeah, I go back and forth on her. She's a bit comedy, but when she can get in the ring, she can work her butt off, you know?
Yeah.
So the one thing that I was thinking about this, and it's been a while since I've seen her on TV. What about some of the stars that aren't really being used on NXT being put on TNA? Like right now, Thea Hale, for instance.
Right? Yep.
Put her in TNA for a little bit. Even if TNA is not using a women's wrestler or any wrestler for that matter, send them over to NXT. Maybe give them a storyline there. I mean, that I thought that was the perfect thing for Wendy Chu, at least. The whole thing that she's got with Rosemary right now.
Yeah.
And this it feels so surreal for me, by the way, mentioning WWE employees fighting TNA employees.
Right. And I mean, let's not forget Motor City Machine Guns.
Yeah.
Synonymous with TNA.
Oh, just as I'm looking, I just saw our WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, Bianca and Naomi. I mean, Naomi has history with TNA as well. Imagine them going over and fighting Jody Threaten. I forget her partner's name.
Danny Luna.
Yeah. Imagine them two, because they're the women's tag champions over there in TNA, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So imagine having that.
Well, the topic again, and I know this was something that we started discussing when we first started hearing about this crossover and, back last year at the Royal Rumble with Jordynne Grace's appearance.
Yeah, you and I started listening off a bunch of dream matches for Jordynne Grace at that point.
As well as, the idea of NXTNA. So from my understanding, they are looking at already a potential Worlds Collide event, as yourself, myself, and Parrish have all discussed long before this was even a thing. And let's not forget that Endeavor and TKO do run Impact Plus.
Yeah, and this brings up the idea that I brought up in the chat for the show for Genesis. But imagine Worlds Collide, and I'm just going to put this out to the viewers that didn't see what I said in the chat. Imagine Worlds Collide being a 2-night event, same venue, one night NXT, the other night TNA. So one night it's going to be an NXT venue, but the next night is a TNA venue.
Right.
And it's still all NXT versus TNA matches.
Right. I think if you're going to do that, you can make it the 2-night event and you just cross brand both nights. Again, you don't need to have 8 or 9 matches each night. You can do the 5 matches a night.
And that's why I said the 2 nights, because I'm thinking about all the championships that both companies have.
Yeah, but I wouldn't even put titles on the line in that match.
You don't necessarily have to do that. You can have you could do it similar to how they did it for Survivor Series, where all the champions fought each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's I think that's going to do it for tonight. This has been a very stimulating discussion as far as the TNA NXT relationship goes, and I guarantee you, OMD and I and everybody else at the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program are going to be continually discussing this as the time and the years go on for this.
Yes. Give it another 2 weeks and we're going to find out, 10 days, and we are going to find out who's representing TNA in respective Rumbles.
Right. But speaking of the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program, take a look at all the programming we've got for you guys.
Turnbuckle Studios and the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program bring you the week of streams. All times are in Eastern Time. Monday nights you get the Locker Room Breakdown at 7 p.m., followed by the Raw Patrol at 8 p.m. Tuesday brings you the flagship show, Turnbuckle Talk, at 8:05 p.m. Wednesday we play games with the PlayStation Showcase at 8 p.m. Thursday we got total non-stop action with Grace for Impact at 8 p.m. Friday we game again with Unleashed, the Jessica Wilde story at 7 p.m. Following the game, join us for the SmackDown Security Detail at 8 p.m. The weekend brings you Saturday Night Gaming at 8 p.m. On Sunday be sure to catch the Chris Parrish podcast at 12:15 p.m. followed by the Boar's Nest at 8 p.m. Be part of the shows and join the chat every day.
Yeah, and that's all the fantastic programming you can get with the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program. But if you want to find out some more information about the affiliation program, all you need to do is go to affiliationprogram.my.canva.site, where you will get all the information needed. And if you want to reach out to any one of us, you can do so through the affiliation program.my.canva.site. OMD, I still see that the music is looping through your ears. The commercial is still looping through your ears. So I'm just going to go ahead and offer up my socials before OMD is cleared. You can look for me at my link tree, which is lanktr.ee/Chris_best83. You will look for me tomorrow night alongside OMD in what is possibly going to be a bit of a longer episode of the PlayStation Showcase. We're going to be taking a look at I almost forgot the game. God of War Ragnarok. OMD, are you back with us just yet? He's got the one finger up. He's acknowledging and talking into the mic, and he's still muted. You know what, OMD? I'm just going to give out your socials as well, just for you. You can find OMD at his link tree, lanktr.ee, and I'm not going to do that laugh/OMD show. Where you will see him visually as well is tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, for the PlayStation Showcase. But be sure to catch him Thursday as well, 8 p.m. for Brace for Impact. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, as the one Carl Carafel would say, the world's a scary place. Take care of each other.